The quiet morning used to be my favorite time of day, a sacred space where the world still slept and only the soft hum of our shared life filled the air. I would wake before him, just to watch the gentle rise and fall of his chest, to trace the contours of his sleeping face. It felt like a secret, a privilege, a profound connection that anchored my entire existence. We had built something beautiful. Or so I thought, a fortress of trust and laughter and dreams whispered under starlit skies. Our story began, like many do, with a spark that ignited into an unstoppable blaze. We met at a friend's gathering, a chance encounter that felt like fate stepping in. He had this infectious smile that reached his eyes, crinkling at the corners, in a way that just melted me. His humor was quick, his mind sharp, his presence comforting and exhilarating all at once. We talked for hours that first night, oblivious to the passing time, to the dwindling guests, to anything but each other. It was an instant bond, a recognition of souls that seemed to have been searching for one another. We fell in love quickly, passionately, fiercely. It felt like the kind of love they write novels about, the kind that defies logic and reason, the kind that makes you believe in magic. Our days were a tapestry woven with shared experiences, from mundane errands transformed into adventures, to grand romantic gestures that made my heart swell. Our evenings were for quiet intimacy, for shared meals and deep conversations, for the comfort of simply existing together in the same space, without needing a single word to fill the silence. He was my confidant, my best friend, my lover, my everything. I trusted him implicitly. Every fiber of my being resonated with the certainty that he was my forever. We talked about our future, often picturing a quaint little house with a garden, a mischievous dog, children, running through sun-drenched fields, retirement spent holding hands on a porch swing. These were not idle fantasies. They were blueprints for a life. We were meticulously constructing together, brick by brick, moment by moment, love notes left on the fridge, surprise bouquets of flowers for no reason, heartfelt apologies after minor disagreements, shared laughter over silly inside jokes. These were the textures of our daily life, the undeniable proofs of our unwavering devotion. And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the colors began to fade. The edges of our perfect picture started to fray. It began with small shifts, easy to dismiss at first. A longer day at work became more frequent, a sudden business trip that felt a little too convenient, a phone always face down, always just out of my reach when he was around. I told myself it was stress, work, pressure, nothing more. I was a supportive partner. I understood the demands of his career, but a quiet unease started to settle in my stomach, a cold knot of dread that tightened with each passing day. I tried to push it away, to rationalize, to blame my own insecurities, but the feeling persisted, a persistent whisper in the back of my mind growing louder. I noticed his eyes would sometimes dart away when I asked about his day, his answers becoming vague, clipped, almost evasive. Our conversations, once so free-flowing, became stilted, forced. There were fewer late-night talks, fewer spontaneous hugs, fewer moments of shared silence that felt comfortable. Instead, they felt heavy, pregnant with unspoken words, with a growing distance that stretched between us like an invisible barrier. I tried to bridge the gap with affection, with questions, with attempts to rekindle the spark, but it felt like I was the only one trying, like I was reaching across a chasm that he was actively widening. One evening he came home later than usual. His clothes were wrinkled, but not in the way they would be. After a long day at the office, There was a faint scent on him, something sweet and unfamiliar. Not his usual cologne, not my perfume. I asked him about it, casually trying to keep my voice light, my heart pounding against my ribs. He mumbled something about a colleague spilling coffee, a hasty explanation that sounded rehearsed, too perfect. I pretended to believe him. I smiled, I nodded. I even offered to make him tea, but inside, a storm was brewing, a terrible, terrifying storm of suspicion and betrayal. A few days later, I found a receipt tucked into the pocket of his jacket for a fancy restaurant, a place we had talked about going to for our anniversary, but had never managed to book the date. On the receipt was from a night he had claimed to be working late on an urgent project. My hands trembled as I held the small piece of paper. It felt like a weapon aimed directly at my heart. I searched his phone when he was in the shower. A terrible invasion of privacy, something I swore I would never do. But the urge, the need to know the truth was overpowering. I scrolled through his messages, my breath catching in my throat, my eyes burning with unshed tears. There they were, the messages, the undeniable proof, an entire clandestine world hidden in plain sight. There were sweet nothings exchanged with someone else, plans for secret rendezvous declarations of affection that mirrored the ones he used to whisper to me. My heart shattered into a million pieces, the sound deafening in my own ears. A guttural cry escaped my lips, a sound I did not recognize as my own. A wail of pure agony and despair. The world tilted on its axis. The air left my lungs. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of pain and disbelief. All our memories, our shared dreams, our promises, everything we had built together crumbled into dust before my eyes. It was a physical sensation, a tearing in my soul, an emptiness so profound it left me gasping for air. He emerged from the shower humming a tune, oblivious to the devastation he had wrought to the shattered fragments of my life, strewn across the floor of our bedroom, our sanctuary, our once sacred space. I looked at him, my eyes blurring through a haze of tears, unable to speak, unable to form coherent words. I simply held up his phone, its screen illuminated with the damning evidence. His face drained of color. His humming stopped dead. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, a mixture of shock and guilt, and a flicker of something I could not quite place, fear perhaps, or resignation. A pathetic attempt at a denial died on his lips as he saw the messages, the very words he had so casually shared with another woman. There was no room for explanation, no possibility of a misunderstanding. Only the stark, brutal truth stood between us, a towering wall of betrayal. I asked him, why my voice, a broken whisper barely audible. He offered no coherent answer, just a string of excuses about confusion, about feeling lost about things, being complicated, empty, meaningless words that only deepened the wound. How could someone who swore to love you unconditionally, someone who promised you forever, shatter your world with such callous disregard? How could the man who used to look at me like I was the only star in his sky now look at me with such shame and regret and a strange defensiveness? The confrontation was a blur of accusations and tears of hollow apologies and desperate pleas for forgiveness. But forgiveness felt impossible. An alien concept that my ravaged heart simply could not grasp. The trust was gone, vaporized into thin air, irrevocably broken. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. It was the sound of a relationship dying, of a future dissolving, of a love turning to ash. I told him to leave, to gather his things, to go away from my sight. I could not bear to look at him, to breathe the same air as him, to be in the same room as the person who had so ruthlessly destroyed my faith in love in him and myself. He packed his bags slowly, deliberately, his movements strangely detached, as if he were merely an actor in a play, not the architect of my undoing. I watched him go, a hollow ache in my chest, a gaping wound that refused to heal. The door clicked shut behind him, and the sound echoed through the emptiness of our once vibrant home. It was over. The beautiful story we had written together had reached its tragic end, not with a happily ever after, but with a painful, abrupt finality. The days that followed were a torment, a relentless cycle of grief and anger and profound loneliness. I cried until my eyes were swollen shut, until there were no more tears left to shed. I screamed into pillows until my throat was raw. I replayed every memory, every interaction, searching for clues, for signs I had missed, for anything that could explain how we had come to this devastating point. Slowly, inch by agonizing inch, I began the arduous process of picking up the pieces. It was like trying to reassemble a shattered vase, each fragment sharp, each memory a fresh stab of pain. But I knew I had to do it for myself, for the woman I used to be, before betrayal had left its ugly mark. I started by reclaiming our space, removing his things, his presence from every corner of the house, changing the sheets, cleaning out the fridge, deleting old photos. Not because I wanted to erase him, but because I needed to create a clean slate, a new beginning for myself. I leaned on my friends, my family, their unwavering support, a lifeline in my darkest hours. They listened patiently. They offered comfort. They reminded me of my strength, my worth, my resilience. It was a long and difficult journey filled with setbacks and moments of despair. But with each passing day, the sharp edges of my grief began to soften. The raw wound started to scab over to heal. I learned to live without him, to find joy in small moments again. A quiet cup of coffee in the morning, a walk in the park, a good book, a laugh shared with a friend. I learned that healing is not linear. It is a winding path with twists and turns and unexpected potholes. But it is a path that ultimately leads to self-discovery, to rediscovering who you are, outside the context of a broken relationship. I realized that his betrayal was a reflection of his own weaknesses, his own choices, not a commentary on my worth or my lovable nature. It was not my fault. His actions were his alone to bear. I deserved better. I deserved honesty and loyalty and a love that was pure and true and unwavering. This journey has taught me profound lessons about trust, about vulnerability, about the fragile nature of human connection. But most importantly, it has taught me about my own strength, my capacity to endure, to rebuild, to emerge from the wreckage, stronger and more resilient than ever before. I am still healing, still growing, still learning, but I am no longer defined by his betrayal. I am defined by my own courage, my own spirit, my own unwavering belief in a future filled with genuine love and authentic happiness. A future I will build for myself brick by brick, moment by moment. I started to explore new passions, new hobbies, things I had put aside when our relationship consumed so much of my time and energy. I took up painting again, letting the colors express emotions words could not capture. I joined a hiking group, discovering the solace and strength that nature provides. I began journaling, pouring my thoughts and feelings onto paper, a private dialogue with my soul that helped me process the complex layers of my grief and eventual acceptance. I learned to truly love my own company, to cherish my solitude, to find completeness within myself, rather than seeking it in another person. It was a revelation, a profound shift in perspective that empowered me beyond measure. I no longer fear being alone. I welcome it as an opportunity for introspection and growth. The scar of his betrayal remains a faint reminder of a painful past, but it is a scar that no longer defines me. It is a testament to my survival, to my resilience, to my capacity to overcome and transform pain into purpose. I carry lessons, not burdens, a wisdom forged in fire, a quiet strength that whispers, "I am enough. I am worthy of all the good things that life has to offer. I am ready to embrace my future, whatever it may hold, with open arms and a heart that is once again ready to love not just another person, but myself above all else." My journey is a testament that even from the deepest, darkest valleys of despair, new life can emerge stronger, more vibrant, more beautiful than before.